My name is Chandell Stone. I'm the Vice President of Programs at 3-Day Startup and also an entrepreneur in residence here. I'm supporting our work to increase the number of underrepresented founders who have access to entrepreneurship education, which is look like a myriad of things, but I'm really excited to have the opportunity to speak with you all. I'm joined by a lovely panel of entrepreneurs who are going to give us sort of their insights in terms of what it's like to be a female entrepreneur today, especially operating out of Latin America, currently based in Mexico City, actually. So this is like a very, I don't know, like a conversation that really resonates with me, just as I'm like hoping to expand our reach here in Latin America as well. So let's do like a quick whip around, and if you could just like introduce yourself. If you are currently working on a project, share a little bit more about that and where you're based. We can start with Geórgia.
Hello, everyone. I am Geórgia. I am the co-founder of Afrolatina, which is a social enterprise that promotes the socioeconomic mobility of Brazilian Black women. Since we are the largest demographic group in the country, and we still face lack of access to basic rights, to economic growth, and so on. So we have been promoting the generation and distribution of income to our community through education. And it's my pleasure being here because entrepreneurship is one of the ways that we have to succeed and to provide for our families in Brazil as a Black woman. So it's really nice to be here representing the group and also speaking about my country from this perspective, which is the majority of the perspective that you can have from Brazil. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Pilar.
Hi, I'm Pilar Espinoza. I'm co-founder and CEO at Astra Vision. We are a SaaS solution that is merging artificial intelligence into medical imaging. So we can make a diagnosis more affordable, easier and faster for the whole population, not only the people that can go and visit a top of the notch doctor, but to give this an accurate diagnosis and a timely diagnosis to everyone in Latin America.
Thank you. Kate.
Thank you, Chandell. Well, I'm extremely Matveeva, but yeah, in English I'm used to be called, well, Kate. I'm founder of Amolingua. Amolingua focuses on language, cultural, and soft skills training online for entrepreneurs and professionals via our own platform based on AI metrics. And this very moment, even though like the main base is always Scotland, Edinburgh, well, I myself being between Edinburgh and Buenos Aires, and it's been already more than 4 years, while I'm exploring Latin America and developing Amolingua in Latin America, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, so on. And we are trying to promote not just say language education, when cultural intelligence, how important it is to understand who you are, who you're talking to, whether it's just school, school lunch, or it's an international company. So that's what we are.
Thank you so much for sharing. So we're going to kick this off with a question for Pilar, but obviously it's opened up to anyone in the group to respond. What do you feel like, Pilar, what do you feel like are the largest barriers for Latinas entering the tech space right now?
Yes, well, I think that it's a very big problem, obviously, and we're changing things as we speak, and it's a very interesting time on age that we're living as women and as Latin American women. But I think that it comes from a lot of years behind. Just to begin with, we don't have as many engineers as we should, or the engineers that we're having, or the people that are studying these kind of careers that could actually lead to a technology or anything of that sort are not encouraged into women. I've always say that the women don't get Lego and the men do. So we start with the problem very back in age, but that's the first start. And then the second one is that the women that are actually studying these things and are actually going into the workforce are not probably in the decision making power position. So this is another thing that it's complicated. And the few that actually go into the top, they're surrounded by men. So many of their characteristics or many of the things that they are intrinsic of our personality are seen as either weak or not understood. It's not to put a word on that, but not being understood in a general space. So it's very difficult to go into that position. And when you're there, it's also a complicated position. So for me, the problem that we have, it's from the education to how to other men can go and feel comfortable in a decision-making table where it's equally or there's more women than men. So that would be for me the challenges that I think we're facing as women in Latin America.
Thank you. And Laura just joined us, Laura from Latinas Tech. Thank you for stopping by. I actually have a question for you. So if you could just like introduce yourself, tell everybody where you're based and what you're working on. And then I have a question, or just wanted to pose a question to you about sort of like the untold story of Latinas in tech. I feel like it's a space that, there's not enough conversation around, and feel like people don't even really have an understanding really of like the state of affairs. Pilar, spoke on it or touched on it a bit in just talking about the challenges, but if you were to just give like a sort of like broad stroke, like what's happening, what are the state of affairs, like what would you say is that untold story about Latinas in tech right now?
Well, first, sorry about the delay because I have problems with this kind of thing, so internet. But well, hi everyone, my name is Laura and I have a community, Mexicana Tech. It's a community that help all the Mexicanas women in the part of the STEM, science, technology, engineer, and entrepreneurship. So we have many events and many things that we do. So if you want to join us, welcome. And well, the question about this is a lot of information here in Latin America. We have three biggest challenges that, well, I recognize it. First one is about the leadership. We have gender discrimination here in Latin America because men think that women can be a leader, manager, or have this kind of position because they are women, and this kind of discrimination is bad for us. And the second challenge we have is the balance of our life and take care of work and part of we have a family or something like that, or the woman can be a mom, can be complicated because we can't get this balance here in Latin America because we have a lot of works and we don't have like other countries like balance. So this kind of challenge. And the third one, I think that is complicated about the salary because we have a discrepancy of the gap salary. So for example, a man get more money, like 30%, and the woman get less. So these kind of things can be complicated for us. But the only thing that we can do is create programs or something like get more networking for women and support each other to get these benefits for us.
Thank you for sharing. And I think we definitely drill down on the challenges that Latinas are facing right now in the tech space and the entrepreneurship space. But like, could someone just like, shed some light on why right now is a better time than ever for Latina entrepreneurs? Why should, given all of these challenges and barriers, should Latinas even pursue this space? and try to like get their ideas off the ground, even despite all of the things that Pilar and Laura just mentioned. And I'll pose that to anyone. Go ahead, Kate.
I'd like to give my contribution.
Okay, go on.
I'm not specifically from the tech ecosystem, but I feel like we are living in a time that we need innovation. And when we think only away from one perspective, we are bringing solutions for the same problems. So most of the companies of the entrepreneurial ecosystem is formed by high class, men, white, straight, and with a lot of social markers that leads to a homogeneous group. So I feel like it's important for us to have different heads to address different problems. Otherwise, we are not going to benefit Latin America as a region. We will just keep maintaining the concentration of income from specific groups in society. So we should stand out for what we think that it's the solution for the problems that we have. And once we do this collectively, it becomes easier for us to handle the journey, which really is require resilience, inspiration, and purpose. So I guess it's important for us to be in spaces like that and to raise our hands and to take a stand with our work in order to make sure that the society is going to be improved in a different perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Chandell. Yeah, I mean, Georgia, that's wonderful. And also, Laura, what you mentioned about your challenges and opportunities and resilience, of course, but why now? Like, I was like locked in Argentina during the pandemic times. I was supposed to fly away. I came here like for 2 weeks, and then I was supposed to fly to California, Canada, like back to Scotland, everywhere. And I spent here in lockdown for 10 months. 10 months, just think about it. Just in an apartment in Buenos Aires, I was going crazy, nuts. But what I noticed, that was a time, we all know about this digital transformation, right? Who managed your digital transformation in your company? Like a manager? No, COVID, right? So what happened, it feels like, that during those times, especially 2020, 2021, a lot of women, because they got stuck at home, either with babies, without babies, studying online, working online, kind of woke up. That's how I feel it in the region. Because yeah, I have a vast network here of women entrepreneurs and some of my students of executive programs, because I'm also like teaching in Argentina at uni. What I noticed is that all these women started trying out ideas, and more communities started like being formed. One of them, this Women Economic Forum. And I believe that in each country, like in Latin America, there is some sort of like chapter, whatever it is, where these women entrepreneurs support each other, giving each other workshops, whatever it is. And it's all like online community. More some sort of like tech branches started appearing. Some of like, let's say American or European initiatives kind of cooperate here on the local level. And right now, some of the banks like HSBC started promoting a program like Mujeres al Mundo. Yes, so it's something that helps women to like get the grasp on all these basic skills, starting from, you know, finance. I mean, like how to organize your finance either for yourself here or for your company, up to the point of, you know, sales, like all the business processes, yeah, like going up to whether it's corporative sales or whether it's team building or perhaps as well investment, which is amazing because again, when we compare this sector, the entrepreneurial sector, like States, Europe, and Latin America still needs to learn a lot. And it's all right, that's fine. The most important that it feels like that women are getting, you know, open to it, they're more ready, even though men still resist. And I also see like girls here were mentioning that guys like me coming as a foreigner, establishing myself inside, like Argentina is like crazy. Like people are looking at me and saying, oh, you're actually woman, you're an entrepreneur and you having your like global business, really? Because like for them it's like, you know, this magical creature, because they are used to this perception, the image of a woman who is, well, either sitting at home or working in a company, gets a modest income and not ambitious at all. So what I'm seeing that there are more and more ambitious women appearing on stage, and more men who did it actually start supporting them. That's the most important, I think, the ecosystem is being like in the flow, it's developing. And I hope that in a few years it will actually flourish. And that's why it's here now.
Thank you. So I, have had the privilege of traveling a lot throughout the world, and especially around Latin America. And one thing that I feel like I didn't truly appreciate until I spent a considerable amount of time in Latin America is and just like speaking of this idea of like the untold story of Latinas, is the diversity in like the Latina community. I think there's, a bit of a single story and a bit of a single narrative around what it means to be a Latina. And so it's like really exciting to see, organizations and in sort of like communities that are like popping up and really standing out and saying like, here's what my community is about, and making sure that, folks are being seen and the diversity of being Latina is being seen. And so Geórgia, I'd love to pose this question to you just around this idea of intersectionality and being an Afro-Latina. How do you feel like that, like being an Afro-Latina is viewed in the entrepreneur space? And like, do you feel like that intersectionality helps or hinders the ability for women to achieve success? And I ask the help or hinder as well, because I think that there is, a greater appreciation for the African diaspora that's just happening on a global scale. And so I'm, generally curious as to how that's manifesting itself in Latin America and as you see it.
Thank you, Chandell, for this question. For me, it's impossible to answer your question without setting what does it mean to be an Afro-Latina. So colonialism was a long process in Latin America. So everything that we do is related to the consequences that we still face about this process. So systemically, Afro-Latinas do not handle only gender inequalities. We face problems which comes along with the vision about race and also with the vision about income levels. So the fact of being a Black woman in Latin America says that we have less access to education, less access to employment, less access to basic rights, because we are still living in capitalism. So money and such growth opportunities define what we can be, what we can do in society. So in entrepreneurship, it's not different. So most of the entrepreneurial community in Brazil, for example, is Black. Most of the Black entrepreneurial community is female. However, we have entrepreneurship not here as a fact of purpose of I dream to be an entrepreneur, but mostly as a response over unemployment, because we also are leaders on the unemployment rates. So I feel like we have some difficulties to access the basic things like entrepreneurial education, finance management education. Most of the female entrepreneurs who are Afro-Latinas aren't even registered. So they do not have government policies to support them. Even though they're still working and paying their bills, they are paying taxes and all. So it's not a fair salary. It's not a fair revenue for the job. So I'm pretty sure that every time that I introduce myself or that I get introduced to Afro-Latinas as entrepreneurs or as leaders in any place, I know that we have been starting a lot of steps behind white women, white females. And that's because we have like a history around us. which shows that, for example, in Brazil, we have almost 4 centuries of slavery as the main system of production, as the main economic system of the country. So we are still living in such environment. So if we go to the place that we are talking about, that entrepreneurship of Afrolatina who already have business set, we can also see that there are less revenues coming from their operations, that there are less investors betting on that idea. We also can see that in times like the pandemics, we have less access to credit to support the business. So unfortunately, I have more challenge to tell than advantage, but as a Black female entrepreneur myself, I feel like I have the opportunity to set a business which is going to truly change the economic situation of my country, because I am from a country which is full of Black people. And if I address my actions, if I address my business to this specific group, I will automatically improve the economic basis of Brazil. And when it comes to investors, I feel like it's very important to see the Black community as a place to develop, because we are a lot of people. It's a huge market. And even though we face a lot of inequalities, we are still buying, we are still keeping the economics rolling because the number is expressive. So I feel like it's important for us to, in every event, regardless the topic, if we talk about Latin America, it's important to understand in which dynamics entrepreneurship is inserted, in which dynamics employment, leadership is being developed, because we cannot speak about one Latin America. We are diverse because of a lot of history that comes around the way that the countries were built.
Thank you. I want to actually extend that question to Pilar and Laura, and just in terms of what you see as like the diversity in amongst Latinas in entrepreneurship in Mexico, and what a more inclusive sort of entrepreneur space can look like. As I recognize that there are Afro-Mexicanas in Mexico who maybe don't have as much representation, or indigenous Mexican communities, women from indigenous Mexican communities who also may not have as much representation. So what do you see inclusion sort of looking like, or should look like in Mexico?
You wanna? Okay, I'll go. Yeah, no, when Geórgia was talking, I was very, very touched, because that is a reality. It's not only facing the gender gap, but there's also different. Well, I say like Mexico, it's very different Mexicos, and I think that that's something that replicates Latin America. And we in Mexico, we do have an African Mexican community, but it's not that big, and it's but it's also this community of, as you mentioned, Chandell, the indigenous population, and this there's like I don't know how to say it, but the colonialism, there's a lot of racism, but based on the people of certain colors of skin, like the Pantone of colors, that it's crazy to think about, because we are all mixed, right, as Latin Americans and as Mexicans. But there's even jokes about being a white chican or whatever, that as a joke can be funny, but it's not. But it's a reality. And when you go to any entrepreneurship, fundraising or whatever, these people that had been having all this education and all these opportunities are the ones standing there. And if we talked about some characteristics, physical characteristics of people that were always stand in a position of power, they're still there. And that's something this social mobility is not well received in an entrepreneurship environment. And telling about entrepreneurship environment, and that's something that it's really, I always say it's part of getting these spaces to visualize the people that are not, and they're not looking at. And not only that, but I think that part of why all of us are not getting into those places is because the financing is a big issue when you're entering into entrepreneurship. And if the people that are making the decisions do not feel any empathy for other communities, it's very difficult to get that financing. And if the governments are not actually investing on entrepreneurship, are not investing in people that do not have the resources to probably finance this leap of faith, or this part of the gap of innovation, it's very complicated for people to actually be an entrepreneur. You would be trapped in being an employee all your life, because you would not have the means to go and have this risk, or you would not have a lot of money in your bank just so you can finance all the career that entrepreneurship is. So I think that to get an equalizer in Latin America, we should have more diverse kind of investors. That's something that is very important, and no one is talking about that the investors are the people that are in certain areas, and they're very biased to who they give their money to.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. The other day I had the opportunity to attend a networking event for like startups, and there were some like pretty like prominent sort of like investors or community that was present at this event. And I think that it made me it was just sort of like eye-opening or stunning to be in this, like I'm in Mexico and, you know, in a place where, you know, from an American standpoint, or, you know, someone from the US would consider like a community that's majority people of color, right? Like you expect, but yeah, you expect a certain thing. But when I got there, you would think that I was like in San Francisco. Like it was just like the presentation of folks who were there, although they may, you know, obviously consider themselves Latin American, they were still very much white presenting. It was still very much like white presenting males who were dominating that space in the exact same way. And it then begins to like create this nuanced conversation about what it even means to be BIPOC, so to speak, because everyone who considers themselves a person of color or, you know, Latin American, et cetera, doesn't have the same lived experience and doesn't experience the same barriers because of, you know, colorism and their proximity to whiteness. And it's crazy because I like found myself sort of like having like a similar moment to, and it was unexpected because I'm in Mexico, of like feeling, I mean, I expected to be the only Black woman because we're in Mexico, right? But like, I was not expecting to be like the only, I won't say woman of color, but be among so few folks who were not white presenting. And to like have this moment, like there was a woman there, she was the only woman who appeared indigenous at this event of like hundreds of people. And we like ran to each other, like in the way, I couldn't even barely understand what she was saying because my Spanish is like, okay. But like, we were just like, we were talking so long and with like Google Translate back and forth, like having conversation and like feeling a need to like build community because of the lack of representation that was there. And I think that like, it's just something in terms of like this like conversation of an untold story that folks don't realize. And they're just like, oh, Latin America, there's a bunch of Latin American entrepreneurs. But in reality, it's sort of the same types of people, regardless, who are getting access to the same opportunities, you know, regardless of what country we're in. So it's, yeah, it was a very, very, very interesting experience and just a continued reminder of like our need to even be more clear in our language when we're talking about underrepresented founders. Because when I'm thinking about an underrepresented founder, just being Latin American on its like face value doesn't necessarily mean that you're underrepresented, unfortunately. So yeah, that's not really a question, but just sort of like a thought in alignment with what you all are saying.
I'd actually like to add here as well, like more on positive note, what I've been seeing as a tendency, especially in Colombia, also coming back to Brazil, Georgia, talking a little bit about Bahia. So what I've seen when you talk about the investment flow, you touched upon it, yeah, that, well, where the investors and also what's interesting in Colombia, some women who got to the position of investing, yeah, different, like again, women of color, yeah, all, let's say all the shades, but women, yeah, women entrepreneurs in Colombia formed communities, and one of them is like prop tech, yes, investment and property tech. And they're all women, and they are actually promoting these opportunities, yeah, again, this financial literacy to all women in Colombia and around, yeah, in the region. And that's amazing. That kind of got born just a little bit before the pandemic times, but then obviously now it's growing, and I see how they're moving forward, they're pushing it. And I believe that like in every country in Latin America, this should come as well, like within, you know, that women just, those who manage to achieve here a certain position need to form this community. Obviously that they need support and all, but it's not just, you know, the stagnant process. Oh yeah, we'll wait here for somebody to come. No, it's actually us, like women, yeah, trying to push forward, yeah, in the community, like dominated by white men who, I know, earn, raise millions of dollars of investment here and just like move on. No, it's about women. It's about like completely different energy. And it's the same when talking about these differences, like Brazil, like Georgia. I spent quite some time in Salvador by a year, like in the past 4 years, because of friends as well, and entrepreneurial friends. And I know, like, a study history for the fact this is one of these points, yeah, when we talk about slavery, yeah, between Africa, yeah, no. And when we compare that region, vast, rich region, with like São Paulo, yeah, like what's considered to be like the strongest region in Brazil. Oh my God, like in Bahia, there's so many, well, entrepreneurial, creative people. But again, just because of the lack of education, yeah, lack of access to education, to adequate education, professional education, whatever it is, they just can't get to the same level. So when we go through, you know, international competitions, like I've been mentoring various international competitions, like Seed Stars, like different startup pitches, not many entrepreneurs from those regions, yeah, like from Bahia, for example, yeah, come to pitch. Why? Because they even kind of don't get the news, because they're like so far away from it. So I believe that it's also about some sort of like connectivity, logistics, yeah, like bringing together all these communities, yeah, whether it's female communities, yeah, like female entrepreneurs, female investors, it's communities of color, as you say, like Afrolatinas. It's about like getting together, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, yeah, whichever tool we have, and then just bringing together there's brilliant people and saying, all right, so we are all connected. Bring your friend, yeah, bring your co-founder, you know, somebody, yeah, who's maybe not an entrepreneur yet, but would like to become an aspiring entrepreneur. Let's connect, let's have, well, virtual events, and then let's try to have local events. Even if it's this type of initiative, that's already something, because then it's the first step, and then the second step, yeah, and we start building like a proper road to like the next stage of, let's say, prosperity of this community.
What do you feel like, Kate, what do you feel like, or why do you feel like Latin America right now is a good place for women, maybe not even just Latinas, but like people who are watching, you know, who might be considering moving, relocating? Why do you feel like Latin America is a good place for female entrepreneurs to take root?
Let's say, like, I feel that in the past 2 years, so women here, like, are waking up. Not only women, let's say, yeah, like the communities, but like women mostly are waking up. Europe right now is a mess. US is also a mess, let's be honest. It's a mess. Like Asia, again, COVID. I mean, I have, people like I know. So Latin America, what's interesting? What I feel, the difference is that Latin American communities are much closer to nature. And actually all the processes that are being built, I'm talking not only right now, like in the past decade, whether it's processes in education or in business, quite often kind of mimicked the nature. So they follow natural path, natural process, which is much better, much more authentic in a way. So there is like more connection with that. So I would say that it's something, like it's something different about culture when we talk about it. Obviously, when you're relocating, coming to Latin America with your own mindset, brace yourself, because the level of uncertainty and predictability, like it's unbelievable. Like Argentina, inflation rate 50% each year. 50%. What? You are talking about 7%? What? No, 50%. And like you never know. And lots of countries, you're having big issues, with probably default, or like whatever they are, like change of government. So when you come to Latin America, you need here to build resilience. And I believe Latin American entrepreneurs more than ever prepared for the coming crisis, change of, status quo, whatever it is. And when you come to Latin America, you can definitely find a huge market, but it's not just like market, like emerging market. It's also about, again, partnerships, collaborations, great people who would like to work on your idea, who would like to share your passion. And I see this, like Latin American people are very hardworking as well, right? So they have their own passion for life. And I believe that's also one of the key, components when you're like building a team, right? Because I mean, what are you going to do without a team? You can be solo entrepreneur, sure. But when you're on the ground, team is going to help you so much with like expanding your business, developing it and to the next stage. So that's, I think, what about it, whether you're coming from abroad, let's say you're from another continent, would like to establish yourself in Latin America, definitely like open yourself up to new experiences, uncertainty, and connect with people.
So one thing that kind of came to mind, like in this thought of, so first of all, because of like remote work, a lot of people are coming to Latin America, me being one of them. And I think that, as a woman of color who grew up in a community that is historically marginalized and that was high poverty, and to see what it looks like for outsiders or other folks to come into your community. I'm always very sensitive to that. And I'm always very sensitive to like, how do you join a community and do so in a way that's harmonious and like, and doesn't become exclusionary to the people who were there before you. And so I'm curious to hear from, Laura, Geórgia, or Pilar, or any and all of you, as you see folks moving into Mexico, moving into Brazil, trying to like start companies, make change, do things, or just live. Maybe they're not even trying to like have a big impact. They just like want to enjoy, right? How do you do that in a way that like respects the community and culture? How do you do that in a way that not just like doesn't do harm, but actually uplifts communities that are trying to like thrive as entrepreneurs or as women who are trying to thrive in the tech space? How do you support?
I have like, there is something, I'm really open to multicultural relationships, but that's something that it's important to say, is that once you decided to move to another country, you should research and you should adapt to this country's culture. I feel like sometimes people come to Brazil expecting us to embrace their culture more than they are open to embrace ours. And part of the economic strategies that I feel like it's very empowering in Brazil, especially when we talk about communities, is to understand where are you leaving your money? Like, buy from Black communities, buy from poor communities. Try to understand where you are leaving your money, because otherwise we are just having like money coming into our country, but for the same hands, and it's not going to change anything. So I'm really, how can I say, a supporter of the idea of raising a generational wealth for the Black community in Brazil. So if you are coming, you want to support, you have money to invest in any country of Latin America, come to Brazil, support a Black entrepreneurial ecosystem, try to understand like the struggles that the country is facing, the political, economic, and social struggles. And maybe this way you can be a better contributor with your money. And I feel you have a nice opportunity, since your currency is really better than ours. So it would be easier for you to invest in ideas and in leaders as well, if you want to work with individuals. But it's easier for you to grow things in Latin America right now, considering all the scenario that we are living. So my biggest advice is to research and to be really open-minded for the culture that you are trying to be part of, because every time that a Brazilian leaves Brazil, we are going to embrace each other's culture. We know I'm here, I'm not in Brazil right now. I am in the UK, I'm here speaking English, I'm here trying to adapt. So why not learning Portuguese? Why not going to Brazil with such investment from your side as well? So I guess that's where you can find more growth, personally and professionally speaking as well.
I really like what you said about folks recognizing like the power of other currencies. I think that like, especially, so just in like, you know, based on like what Pilar said, for example, about like there being this issue with funders not being like reflective of the populations that we're trying to uplift. I think that sometimes, I mean, it creates an opportunity to almost put power back in the hands of ordinary people, if you will, by just doing things like, you know, being cognizant of purchasing things from female-led companies, indigenous-led companies, Black-led companies, and then also sort of reframing yourself as like being in the position to even be an investor. That was like, I think that's something that a lot of folks like, it's like a bit of like a code switch, because for some people who like come, let's say from the US, and they were middle class, and being middle class does not, I mean, yeah, you can choose where you put your dollars, but like, you don't really see yourself as like being in the position to like invest in companies. But then, you know, you move to Mexico, or you move to Brazil, or you move to a place where like the dollar is much stronger. And then all of a sudden now you're actually in a position to be a more support to companies than you may have previously felt that you could be. So I felt like, I mean, that I really appreciated you making that point, because I think that's something that a lot of foreigners don't necessarily think about when they're coming to other countries.
Yes, and I don't know if Laura wanted to say something.
Yes, I just want to say something to the information to Geórgia. And well, I think that it's important to get networking before you want to visit a specific country, because when you get networking in remote, you have the experience and you have the opportunity to know each other. And when you get a country and you have that person that you know, and it get more easy to get this kind of interaction and get more empathy with the business.
And what about just like this idea of like launching a company in Latin America, like as Kate did, for example, and like how do you go about that? Or actually, Kate, I'll actually pose this question to you first of like, how did you go about it in a way that you feel like was really sort of like honoring the cultures and communities that are present? And then if other folks want to like tap in to this conversation of like, what else can folks do to like make sure that they're like operating harmoniously and such as they think about launching companies in Latin America?
Well, when we talk, I'll just continue with what Geórgia was saying, yeah, Laura. So when you come to another culture, so just understand, I've lived in 9 countries. Yeah, I've studied like in tons, like, and I've lived in 9 countries like properly, you know, when you're sitting there, you're working, studying, everything. So every time I go to a new country, like to be there, I learn a lot about the culture, about history, economics, social status, everything. Because when you come, you want to be up to date. And what I notice, especially as well now, Argentina, like and other Latin American countries are pushing for startup visas, you know, right? So it's like when you come for a year, maybe a couple of years, you could work on remote and all. And I'm not sure that it's a very good idea if it's not kind of, you know, given to you properly. What I mean by it, that it's like tourism, right? You come, you trash, you go. So it feels to me that entrepreneurs who are coming to Latin America, I mean, any country, when you come into any country, you need to get educated how to behave there, how to respect the local culture, the local traditions, rituals, and communities. So when I was coming to Argentina and getting to know, like grasping, yeah, the very essence of Argentina, I realized that, yeah, like in any other culture I lived, I need to become part of me, like need to become Argentinian in a way. I need to start thinking about it. Like it's like, okay, so if I'm here, if I'm setting up like a legal entity, how am I acting? I have to face all the same like paper like nightmare that all the locals are facing. No, I won't be like, oh yeah, I'm a friend. No, like I speak Spanish, yeah, like fluently. I am here grasping the culture. I'm getting like an accountant. We all need it here and all, and just going step by step. Oh, a vicious circle with paperwork. 1 year can't get like a certain document. That's a reality, you know? So what are you going to do? Like, you know, it's not Scotland anymore. So all of that you have to face, right? And I believe like Chandell here, it's not about, you know, kind of like, let's say internationals, yeah, foreigners come into a Latin American country and complaining that nothing works, for instance. It's about adapting. It's about learning how to move with the current, learning like the flow, Latin American flow, like where people are going, what are their habits, what are, let's say, their preferences, because like, again, in every country, they're quite different. And from there, well, what I can say, obviously, maybe social life would be much more diverse in Latin America than in some of European towns here or American towns. That I can say, yeah, that like people are warmer. Like, so like, you can play around like with social side, that there could be some sort of like business challenges, big ones, like corruption. I mean, I've seen it all here already. But I mean, social part, I think winning. And eventually, when you're socializing, let's say, when you're building a business in the Latin American way, you need to adapt this business/friendship culture, right? Because it's, again, when we compare, well, maybe American culture, like business culture, is more direct, it's colder in a way, more superficial when we talk about business. Latin America is different, especially, again, like Mexico is one type, Colombia another, Argentina another, and so on. But the thing is that you need to invest into building context, into building your network and your community, because without it in Latin America, you won't go far.
Yeah. Anybody add anything to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I would. I love the friendship business way of doing things, and I think that everything, even if we go to any other country that is not Latin America, I think that the problem is the respect. Also, having the respect for everyone and for everything that either the culture or the people per se has, right? Being a woman is the same as being a man, and it should be treated equally. So at least in a business scenario. So I love what you said, Ekaterina, about having this like friendly way of doing business, that it's something that it's also changing. It's also even the consumers are, as Georgia said, they are looking at the labels. We did not look at that. We were not conscious about the ecosystem. We were not conscious about who and in which conditions were making our clothes and everything. So I think that's part of being respectful of a community or a culture or the environment. So whenever is that in your hand, or in how you treat people, everything else is going to align.
Yeah, I also think for me, what I find to be important, so my first company that I launched was called Destination Impact, and we operate, it's a volunteer travel company that basically takes young professionals of color from the US, and we travel mostly throughout the continent of Africa for week-long trips and do like volunteer work and, donate to NGOs to create sustainable development. And one thing that I felt was like really important and that I learned to really embrace in that process of like going to another country and forming a business is a lot of what Kate said, but and also being really intentional about developing products or developing ideas and projects in tandem with community. And that might seem like a very like NGO thing, like, oh, we go to the community and blah, blah, but that's actually a very like, it's just a way to do business. It's just a way to build a company. You're supposed to talk to customers. You're supposed to, have the people that you want to serve at the forefront, and not just sort of like create something because like it was in America and so they should have it here sort of like approach. That is like, it's sort of like inappropriate and a little bit like classist in a way. To sort of suggest that like the way that you do things in your country is like, these people are being robbed of this like beautiful thing. It's not like they maybe just like don't want it or like don't care for it or don't think that it works. And it may not work in their community. And so I think it's like involving people from that community or from that country in the development of your product or solution, from a customer standpoint, as well as within your leadership of your organization, and not in a performative way, not in a like, oh, well, you see, we're diverse. We have this indigenous lady on our board, like, like why do you want that person there? And how are you going to ensure that like their voice is heard? And also, how are you going to ensure that like, you're leading in a way that's anti-oppressive, because also putting the labor of so being the watchdog for the indigenous community on your board is like too much. It's too much. Like it shouldn't just rest with that person. It should be everyone's responsibility to like approach like the work equitably. So that's one piece that I think is like extremely important, is like representation and voices in really authentic ways and not in performative ways. And then I think also this recognition of the fact that no company is neutral in terms of their impact on equity in a space. You either are like making things better or you are harming things, and you can be doing both. You can be doing really well in one place and harmful in another. And I think with that in mind, you can always apply a critical lens to how you operate business. Are you are you like, widening gaps in a community with your, real estate company, or are you closing it? Are you, gentrifying a neighborhood, or are you helping people gain access? Like, these things are actually pretty dichotomous. You're either widening the gap or closing it in most cases. So I think it's really important that when people enter new spaces, especially ones that are serving people that they don't necessarily primarily identify with, that they're like really keen to these things and do their research. So we have 3 minutes left, y'all. The hour flew. So I guess we'll just wrap up these last few minutes with just like, I don't even know how should we park this? What would be, let's end off with like a one-liner of what advice you would give to that Latina who's like sitting at home, wondering if she should start this company or jump into this tech space, or how she should do it, or what she should do. What would you say? How would you encourage her?
Atrévete.
Yeah. Well, I would say I heard this phrase a few days ago about women are always thought to be strong, and that's something that I think that they are always told us, even we did not live in a space that we were probably on top of the game, but they never taught us to be powerful. So that was something that was very impactful when they told me, and I was like, yeah, that's very much it. So I would encourage to get that strength that we already have, and we already know that we have, and convert it to and change it to strength, not to power, and put it in the work.
I would like to leave my contribution to all Afro-Latinas out there. Even though it's hard, you are not alone. We are a lot of beautiful women. We have been sustaining this continent for centuries. So if you have an idea, if you feel you can try, just do it. And if you fail, that's okay. You can always start over and over again. So I'd like to see your contribution in the world, and we are all together on this journey. And the future is female, the future is Black and female. So I would encourage all of you to just start. Just put your idea on the road.
And for the last, well, just connect and create community to support each other.
All right. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining. This was a really amazing conversation, and I hope we can get to continue the conversation. Really excited to share this session out with the folks that I think could really benefit from the points that were made here today. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.